Subscribe to Storylab for more stories. Now let's begin this one. Chapter 1. The Warning. The candlelight flickered across Isabel Kennedy's face as she placed the serving dish on our dining table. 8 years of marriage, and she still remembered that coco vin was my absolute favorite. The wine-dark sauce gleamed under the chandelier, herbs floating like tiny boats in a burgundy sea. "Happy anniversary, Sly," she said, using the nickname only she was allowed. Her blonde hair was pulled back the way I liked it, and she wore the emerald dress I'd bought her last Christmas. Everything was perfect. Too perfect, I'd realize later. "It smells incredible, Belle." I reached for my fork, my mouth already watering. "You really outdid yourself this time." I was halfway through raising the fork to my mouth when my phone buzzed. Hassan Whitehead's name lit up the screen. My lead structural engineer and former emergency room doctor. Never called during dinner unless it was urgent. "I should take this," I said apologetically. Isabel's smile tightened just a fraction. "Can it wait? It's our anniversary. It's Hassan. You know he wouldn't call unless." "Answer it at the table then," she said, her voice carrying an edge that made me pause. "Don't let your food get cold." I answered. Hassan's voice came through low and controlled. The same tone he'd used 5 years ago when he told me there was structural damage in the Whitmore building that could kill someone if we didn't evacuate immediately. "Sylvester, I'm outside your house. I need you to come out here right now. Don't eat anything. Act completely normal." My blood went cold. Hassan lived 40 minutes away in Riverside. "What's going on?" "Not on the phone. Tell Isabel something came up with the Ashford renovation. Make it sound believable. Come outside now." I looked at Isabel, who was watching me with an intensity that suddenly felt wrong. "How long had she been staring at me like that?" "The Ashford site," I said, standing. "Apparently, there's an issue with the foundation inspection. Hassan says we need to handle it tonight or we'll lose the permit window." "Tonight?" Isabel's voice rose. "On our anniversary? I'm sorry, Belle. You know how these historic properties are. The city breathes down our neck for everything." I grabbed my jacket from chair. "I'll be back in an hour. We can reheat everything. Sly, I promise. 1 hour." I leaned down to kiss her cheek. She turned her face at the last second, and my lips brushed her jaw instead. Her skin was cold. Hassan's car was parked 3 houses down, engine running. He was a tall black man in his 50s with silver threading through his close-cropped hair, his former medical career evident in his methodical, careful movements. The moment I got in, he pulled away from the curb. "What the hell is going on?" I demanded. "That meal your wife cooked, what was in it?" "Coco vin. Chicken, wine, mushrooms, onions, why?" "The mushrooms. Were they light brown, almost cream-colored with a slight yellowish tint?" I thought back. "Yeah. She said she got them from that specialty market downtown." "Hassan, you're scaring me. I was dropping off those revised blueprints for the Caldwell project. Your window was open. I could see your dining room from the street. I saw the mushrooms on your plate. Sylvester, those weren't regular mushrooms. They're destroying angels. Amanita verosa, one of the most lethal mushrooms on the planet." The world tilted. "That's impossible. Belle wouldn't. We're going to County General. I've already called ahead. Dr. Megan Gibson is expecting us. She's the best toxicologist in the state." He glanced at me, his jaw tight. "Did you eat any of it?" "No. You called just in time." My hand was shaking. "Hassan, there has to be a mistake. Maybe she just grabbed the wrong mushrooms by accident. Destroying angels don't grow in California, Sly. They're not sold in any market. Someone would have to order them specifically, and they'd know exactly what they were getting." He turned onto the highway, accelerating. "How have you been feeling lately? Any nausea, stomach cramps, diarrhea?" "I've had some stomach issues the past few weeks. I thought it was stress from the projects." The pieces were clicking together in my mind, each one more horrifying than the last. "Oh God, she's been making special meals for me. Said she wanted to help me eat healthier. Destroying angel poisoning has 3 stages. First stage, symptoms appear 6 to 12 hours after ingestion. Vomiting, diarrhea, cramps. Second stage, false recovery period, lasting 1 to 2 days. The victim feels better, thinks they just had food poisoning. Third stage, liver and kidney failure. Death follows within a week." Hassan's knuckles were white, on the steering wheel. If someone wanted to commit the perfect murder, this would be it. Looks exactly like natural organ failure. County General appeared ahead. Its emergency bay lit up like a beacon. Hassan pulled straight up to the entrance where a woman in a white coat was waiting with 2 nurses and a wheelchair. "Mr. Kennedy? I'm Dr. Gibson. Let's get you inside." The next 2 hours were a blur of blood draws for lines and chelation therapy. Dr. Gibson was a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s with auburn hair, pulled into a no-nonsense ponytail. She worked with the efficiency of someone who'd seen too many poisoning cases. "Your liver enzymes are elevated," she said, pulling up my blood work on a monitor. "Not critically, but enough to show exposure. If Hassan's right about this being a gradual poisoning over weeks." She trailed off, her expression grim. "Can you prove it was destroying angels?" I asked. "We're running a full toxicology panel, including amatoxin screening. Results will take 48 hours. She studied me with clinical assessment. "Mr. Kennedy, I have to ask, is there any reason someone would want to hurt you?" I thought about Isabel's face when I stood up to leave. That flash of something in her eyes that I'd dismissed as disappointment, but now recognized as anger. Calculation. "I don't know," I lied. But that wasn't true. In the past 3 months, everything had changed. And it all started with what I found hidden in the walls of the Ashford mansion. Chapter 2. The Discovery. 3 months earlier, I've been happier than I'd ever been in my life. The Ashford renovation was my dream project. A 1920s mansion designed by the legendary architect Julian Hawthorne, one of the last of his buildings still standing. The owners, an elderly couple named Rogelio and Della Singh, had hired my firm specifically because of my reputation for authentic historic restoration. I'd grown up in a family of builders. My father had been a contractor who worked on modern developments, all cookie-cutter houses, and maximized profit margins. He'd wanted me to join his company, take over the family business. Instead, I got my architecture degree and specialized in historical preservation. We didn't speak for 5 years because of it. By the time he called to make amends, I was 30 and finally making a name for myself. He died of a heart attack 2 weeks later, before we could meet. That was 4 years ago. Some days I still reach for my phone to call him, to tell him about a particularly clever bit of original construction I'd found before I remembered. Isabel had been my anchor through all of it. We'd met at a gallery opening. She was an art curator. I was there trying to network. She made me laugh with her sharp observations about the pretentious crowd. 6 months later, I proposed. She said yes without hesitation. The first few years were good. Great, even. She supported my career. I supported hers. We bought a house in Mission Hills, adopted a dog named Maverick, planned to start a family after I established my firm. Then came the Ashford project. I was working on a second-floor study, carefully removing water-damaged plaster when I found it. The wall had a hollow space that wasn't on any of the blueprints. I opened it carefully, expecting insulation or old wiring. Instead, I found a metal box containing rolled papers wrapped in protective cloth. The documents were pristine, original architectural drawings by Julian Hawthorne himself, sketches and plans for buildings that were never constructed. Beneath them was a leather journal filled with his handwritten notes and a collection of jewelry that had belonged to his wife, including a ring with a blue diamond the size of my thumbnail. I'd stood there in the dusty study, holding treasures worth millions, and my first thought was, this changes everything. I should have been more careful about who I told. That night, I came home electric with excitement. Isabel was in the kitchen, and I poured out the whole story. She listened with growing intensity, her eyes bright. "How much would they be worth?" she asked. "Conservatively? The documents alone could sell for $2 or $3 million to the right collector. The jewelry is probably worth another $1 million. But the real value is in what this means for architectural history. Who else knows about this?" The question caught me off guard. "Just you and the Singhs." I called them immediately. "They're the legal owners. They could sell everything," Isabel said slowly. "Become millionaires overnight. That's their right. Though I'm hoping to convince them to donate the papers to an institution. The Hawthorne Foundation would." "You found it, Sly. Doesn't that count for something?" I'd laughed, not understanding yet. "I'll get recognition. Maybe a finder's fee. That's not why I do this work, Belle. This is about preserving history. She'd kiss me then, told me she was proud of me. I believed her. What I didn't know was that she'd already started planning. 2 weeks after my discovery, Isabel came home talking about meeting someone interesting at a gallery event. Brenton Garrett, an antique dealer who specialized in architectural salvage and historical artifacts. She thought I should meet him, maybe discuss the Hawthorne find. He has connections with collectors all over the world, she said. He could help the Singhs get top dollar if they decide to sell. I should have questioned why my wife was suddenly so interested in monetizing a historical discovery. Should have wondered why she brought up Brenton Garrett 3 more times that week. I met him a month ago. Brenton was in his mid-40s, with the kind of polished charm that set my teeth on edge. 2 white teeth, 2 perfect hair, 2 firm handshake. He wore an expensive suit and drove a Jaguar that probably cost more than my house. We met at a wine bar downtown. Isabel insisted on coming. The Hawthorne find, Brenton said, swirling his wine. Isabel, show me the photos you took. Extraordinary. Julian Hawthorne, with a genius ahead of his time. The Singhs are still deciding what to do with everything, I said. Of course. But when they're ready, I have clients who would pay premium prices. Private collectors who would cherish these pieces. He leaned forward. I'm talking 8, maybe 10 million for the complete collection. That's substantially more than my estimate, I admitted. The market for Hawthorne has exploded in the past year. There's a buyer in Dubai who's been looking for original Hawthorne drawings for his museum. Another in Switzerland who collects architectural jewelry. Brenton's smile was practiced, professional. I could arrange a very lucrative sale. My commission would be 15%. I'll pass along your information to the Singhs. After he left, Isabel was vibrant, more animated than I'd seen her in months. He's perfect, isn't he? Did you hear what he said about 10 million? It's not my money, Belle. But you could negotiate a finder's fee. At least 10%. That's $1 million, Sly. We could finally start our family, buy that bigger house we talked about. When did you become so interested in money? I asked, genuinely confused. Something flickered across her face. I just want us to be secure. Is that so wrong? Now, sitting in a hospital with Hassan, keeping vigil in the chair beside my bed, I understood. She wasn't interested in our security. She was interested in getting the money by any means necessary. My phone buzzed. Isabel's name appeared. Don't answer it, Hassan said. I answered anyway. Belle, where are you? You said an hour. It's been 3. Her voice carried an edge of panic I'd never heard before. Sly, what's going on? The foundation issue was worse than we thought. I'm still at the site with Hassan. The lie came easily. I'm sorry. I'll be home soon. Your food is ruined. We'll have a proper anniversary dinner tomorrow. I promise. A long pause. Okay. I love you. Love you too. I hung up and looked at Hassan. She knows something's wrong. Good, he said grimly. Let her sweat. Dr. Gibson returned with preliminary results. The blood work shows elevated levels of amatoxins. Not enough to be immediately fatal, but consistent with low-dose poisoning over several weeks. She pulled up a chair. Mr. Kennedy, you need to go to the police. I need proof first. Real proof that will hold up. I sat up straighter, ignoring the 4 pulling at my arm. Can you keep testing my blood? Document everything? Yes, but give me 2 weeks. I need to understand what's really happening. Who's involved? Why? I looked at Hassan. I need to know everything before I make my move. Hassan nodded slowly. Then we start investigating. But Sylvester, you can't go back home. Not tonight. I have to. If I don't, she'll know I'm onto her. I pulled out the 4 myself, making Dr. Gibson wince. I won't eat anything she gives me. I'll order takeout, eat out of sealed containers. But I need to act normal while I figure this out. This is incredibly dangerous, Dr. Gibson warned. So, is my wife trying to murder me? I stood up, steadying myself. But she made one critical mistake. She underestimated me. And now it's my turn to play. Chapter 3, The Affair. I spent the next week living a double life. At home, I was the loving husband, apologetic about missing our anniversary dinner. Isabel played her part too, all concern and affection. But I watch her now with new eyes, seeing the performance for what it was. She'd started suggesting meals again. I'll make your favorite pasta tonight. How about I cook you a nice breakfast? Each offer made my skin crawl. I declined politely, claiming my stomach was still bothering me. I think I picked up a bug at one of the construction sites. Everything's making me nauseous. You should see a doctor, she said, her eyes just a little too bright. It's just a stomach thing. It'll pass. The irony was suffocating. While Isabel was at work, I searched our house. I'd become a stranger in my own home, rifling through drawers and closets, looking for evidence. I found it in her car, a burner phone hidden in the glove compartment. The text messages made my blood boil. Brenton, did he eat it? Isabel. He was about to, but got called away to work. Hassan showed up at the worst possible time. Brenton, that's a problem. Hassan was a doctor. If he suspects anything, Isabel, he doesn't. I'll try again tomorrow. Brenton, we're running out of time. The Singhs are talking to the Hawthorne Foundation. Once they donate those documents, we lose our chance. Isabel, I know. One slice gone, I inherit everything, including his rights to a finder's fee and any claim to the collection. Then you can approach the Singhs as my representative. Brenton, and we split everything 60-40. Isabel, 50-50. We agreed. Brenton, fine, but this needs to happen soon. My buyer in Dubai won't wait forever. I photographed every message, my hands shaking with rage. There were older messages too, going back months, before I'd even found the Hawthorne collection. The affair had started long before the poisoning. Isabel, I'm so tired of pretending. When can we be together for real? Brenton, soon, darling. Soon. Isabel, he's so boring lately. All he talks about is historical integrity and preservation. He doesn't understand money like you do. Brenton, some men are meant to be dreamers. Others are meant to be rich. I put the phone back exactly where I found it and sat in my car for 20 minutes, trying to control my breathing. Hassan called. I did some digging on Brennan Garrett. You're not going to like what I found. Tell me, he's been investigated 3 times for fraud. Once for selling forged antiquities, once for insurance fraud, and once for convincing an elderly client to sell priceless family heirlooms for a fraction of their value. No convictions, he's good at covering his tracks. Hassan paused. There's something else. A woman named Joanne Wyatt filed a restraining order against him 2 years ago. She claimed he seduced her to gain access to her deceased father's art collection. When she realized what he was doing, she tried to back out. He threatened her. What happened? The collection mysteriously burned in a warehouse fire. The insurance company paid out, but they suspected arson. Couldn't prove anything. My mind was racing. He's done this before. Multiple times, according to my source. He targets people with valuable assets, manipulates them, or someone close to them, and then extracts maximum profit. Hassan's voice turned hard. Sylvester, this man is dangerous, and your wife is working with him. I need to know everything. His associates, his buyers, his methods. Can you keep digging? Already on it. But I'm also calling my cousin Jared Howard. He's a defense attorney. You need legal protection. No lawyers yet. No police. Once I involve them, I lose control of how this plays out. I gripped the steering wheel. I want them to pay Hassan. Both of them. Not just with jail time. I want them to lose everything the way they try to make me lose everything. Revenge is a dangerous game. So is murder. I started the car. Keep digging. I need to know what Brenton's planning, who his buyers are, everything. And Hassan, thank you. You saved my life. Thank you for hiring me 5 years ago when no one else would give a former doctor turned engineer a chance. His voice softened. We'll get through this. But please be careful. That night, I lay in bed next to Isabel, watching her sleep. Her face was peaceful, beautiful in the moonlight filtering through the curtains. I'd love this woman, planned a future with her, and she'd been planning to kill me. How long had she been poisoning me? Weeks, Dr. Gibson said. The stomach issues had started around the time I found the Hawthorne collection. She'd been methodical, patient, letting the poison build slowly in my system so it would look like natural organ failure. If Hassan hadn't seen those mushrooms, I'd be dead within a week. Maybe 2. I slipped out of bed and went to my home office. The Hawthorne documents were stored in a climate-controlled safe in the Singh's mansion, but I had high-resolution scans of everything on my laptop. I studied Julian Hawthorne's architectural drawings with new eyes, looking for something I might have missed. The genius of his designs wasn't just in their beauty, it was in their hidden features. Secret rooms, concealed passages, structural tricks that made his buildings seem to defy physics. And then I saw it. One of the unbuilt designs, a private gallery space, had something extraordinary in its blueprints. A feature that Hawthorne had designed but never implemented. Something that required specific knowledge of structural engineering and materials to execute properly. Something I could build. A smile spread across my face as a plan began to form. Brennan Garrett thought he was the spider in this web, manipulating everyone around him. Isabel thought she'd committed the perfect murder. They had no idea what a restoration architect could do with the right motivation and the right knowledge. I opened a new document and began to write. Plans within plans. A trap disguised as an opportunity. I need help. Hassan, certainly. Maybe the Singhs if I could trust them. And I need to move fast before Isabel and Brenton suspected I knew the truth. But most of all, I need to stay alive long enough to see it through. Outside, a car drove slowly past our house. I watched through the window as it paused for a moment before continuing. Probably nothing. But in my new paranoid reality, everything felt like a threat. I saved my notes under a password-protected file, and I shut down the laptop. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Tomorrow, I'd start building my revenge. Chapter 4. The Performance. Dr. Gibson's office had become my secret sanctuary. Twice a week, I'd slip away from work sites claiming meetings with clients, and Hassan would drive me to County General for chelation therapy and blood monitoring. Your levels are dropping, Dr. Gibson said, checking my latest results. The amatoxins are clearing from your system, but you've sustained some liver damage. Long term, you should be fine, but Sylvester, you can't keep playing this game much longer. I just need 2 more weeks. Maybe 3. She shook her head. Every day you're in that house is a risk. What if she tries something more direct? She won't. The slow poisoning was perfect for her plan. Untraceable, looks natural. If I suddenly die violently or suspiciously, she loses her inheritance. Life insurance doesn't pay out for murder. I'd spent hours researching the legal angles. She needs me to die of natural causes. You're assuming she's rational. She is. That's what makes her dangerous. I check my watch. I have to go. Hassan and I are meeting with Rogelio Singh today. The Singhs have become unwitting allies in my plan. Rogelio was a 72-year-old retired professor of architecture. His wife Della, a former gallery curator. They bought the Ashford Mansion 5 years ago as a retirement project, planning to restore it to its original glory. I'd grown close to them over the months of renovation. Rogelio would share stories of historic buildings over coffee while I worked, and Della would bring homemade samosas that reminded me of the grandmother I'd lost years ago. When I'd found the Hawthorne collection, their first instinct had been to donate everything to a museum. These belonged to history, Rogelio had said firmly, but I'd talked them into waiting. Let me authenticate everything first. Make sure we understand the full scope of what we have. Then you can make an informed decision. They'd agreed. The collection remained locked in their safe, its existence known only to the 3 of us, Hassan and, unfortunately, Isabel and Brennan. Hassan and I arrived at the mansion just before noon. Rogelio greeted us at the door, his eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. Sylvester, Hassan, come in, come in. He led us to the study where I'd made the discovery. The walls were now fully restored, the original plasterwork gleaming. Della's made tea. She insists you try her new recipe for cardamom cookies. We settled into the leather chairs Rogelio had brought from India. The study was my favorite room in the house. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive oak desk, and a bay window overlooking gardens that Della tended with meticulous care. I need to tell you something, I began, about the Hawthorne collection. I explained everything. The poisoning, Isabel's betrayal, Brenton Garrett's criminal history, the plan to steal or manipulate the collection sale for personal gain. Rogelio's face grew thunderous. Della, who joined us halfway through, pressed her hand to her mouth. That woman, Della whispered. She came here last week, said she wanted to see the house, that you'd mentioned how beautiful it was. I gave her a tour. My blood ran cold. She was here. I showed her everything. Della continued, guilt coloring her voice, including where we keep the safe. Oh, Sylvester, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. It's not your fault. I forced myself to stay calm. Did she ask about the collection? She seemed very interested in its value. Asked if we considered selling. Rogelio stood up, pacing. I told her we were donating everything to the Hawthorne Foundation. She seemed disappointed. When are you supposed to transfer the collection? Hassan asked. Next month. They're sending representatives to authenticate and transport everything. Perfect. I leaned forward. I have a plan, but I need your help. And it might get complicated. Rogelio sat back down, his expression hardening. That collection is worth millions, and someone is trying to murder my architect over it. Tell us what you need. I pulled out my laptop and opened the file I'd been building. Julian Hawthorne was famous for his hidden rooms and clever architectural tricks. One of his unbuilt designs included a particularly ingenious feature, a gallery space with concealed storage compartments built into the very structure of the walls. I showed them the blueprints I'd been studying. This room we're sitting in was meant to be that gallery. Hawthorne ran out of funding before he could complete the design, but the structural bones are here. With some modifications, I can build what he intended. Hassan caught on immediately. You want to create a trap. Not just a trap, a demonstration. I pulled up another file, my detail plans. Here's what I'm proposing. We let Brenton and Isabel think they're going to steal the collection. We create an opportunity that seems perfect. But when they make their move, we document everything. And we do it in a way that destroys them both financially, legally, and publicly. How? Della asked. By giving them exactly what they want and making them destroy themselves trying to get it. I spent the next hour outlining my plan. It was risky, complex, and required perfect timing. But if it worked, Brenton and Isabel wouldn't just go to prison. They'd lose everything. Their reputations, their freedom, and any chance of profiting from their scheme. Rogelio listened carefully, occasionally asking questions. When I finished, he looked at his wife. Some silent communication passed between them. We're in, he said finally. But Sylvester, you must promise me something. Your safety comes first. If at any point this becomes too dangerous, we stop. Agreed. And when this is over, you'll let me write about what happened. The truth about the collection, the attempted theft, all of it. Rogelio smiled grimly. I may be retired, but I still have connections in the academic world. Brenton Garrett's reputation will be dust by the time I'm done. Over the next 10 days, I lived 2 lives with increasing difficulty. At home, I played the slowly ailing husband. I grew more tired, complained of headaches, let my appearance slip slightly. Isabel watched me with those calculating eyes, probably wondering why I wasn't getting worse faster. She'd stopped trying to cook for me after I declined 5 meals in a row. Instead, she'd gotten more insistent about my seeing a doctor. You look terrible, Sly, she said one morning, her voice perfectly calibrated to sound concerned. This has been going on too long. Let me make you an appointment. Oh, well, I lied. Just give me a few more days. I think I'm finally turning a corner. At work, I was a man possessed. Hassan and I worked 16-hour days at the Ashford Mansion, rebuilding the study according to Hawthorne's original design. We installed hidden cameras, concealed recording equipment, and built the structural trap I designed. The room's crown molding now contained pressure sensors. The bookshelf had a false back leading to a hidden space. The floor had compartments that could be sealed from the outside. And the centerpiece, the safe where the Hawthorne collection was stored, had a special surprise built into its locking mechanism. This is brilliant, Hassan said, testing the electronic controls. Hawthorne would be proud. Let's hope it works. We also brought in 2 other people. Jared Howard, Hassan's cousin, agreed to observe everything from a legal standpoint. And Megan Gibson provided medical testimony about the poisoning. Both signed NDAs and agreed to serve as witnesses when the time came. Meanwhile, I started leaving breadcrumbs for Isabel. I accidentally left documents on my home office desk about the Hawthorne Foundation's planned pickup. I mentioned to Isabel that the Singhs would be out of town for a week, visiting their daughter in San Francisco, leaving the house empty except for the security system. They trust you with the whole place? Isabel asked too casually. I have the security codes and keys. I'll be checking on the house daily while they're gone. I yawned, playing exhausted. Though honestly, I'm so tired lately, I might only go every couple of days. That night, I heard her on her burner phone in the garage. I'd planted a listening device weeks earlier. He told me they're leaving town, Isabel whispered. Next week. The collection will be sitting there with minimal security. Brennan's voice came through tinny but clear. The foundation picks up everything in 3 weeks. This is our window. What about Sly? What about him? You said he's getting worse. Not fast enough. He's still functional, and he has the security codes. Then we make him give them to us. Brenton's voice turned cold. One way or another. I felt the threat like a physical blow. They were getting desperate. The next morning, I called Hassan. We need to move up the timeline. I think they're planning something more direct. How much time do we have? The Singhs leave for San Francisco in 4 days. That's when Brenton and Isabel will make their move. I looked at the plans spread across my office. We need everything ready by then. Then we work around the clock. For 3 days, Hassan and I barely slept. We finished the modifications to the study, tested every system, and rehearsed the plan a dozen times. Jared Howard set up remote monitoring so he could observe everything legally. Dr. Gibson prepared her medical testimony. The Singhs played their part perfectly. They talked loudly about their trip in front of their neighbors. They made sure Isabel knew they were leaving their prized possession, the Hawthorne collection, protected only by a security system. On the day before they were supposed to leave, I came home to find Isabel in an uncharacteristically good mood. I made your favorite tonight, she announced. Real cocoa vin. I know the anniversary dinner was ruined, but I thought we could have a do-over. I looked at the dish on the table. The cream-colored mushrooms floating in the dark sauce. Belle, I can't. My stomach. Please. She moved close to me, running her hand down my arm. I miss you. I miss us. Just a few bites. This was it. Her final attempt before they moved to Plan B. Okay, I said, my heart pounding. Just a little. Her smile was radiant, triumphant. I sat down at the table, raised my fork, brought the food toward my mouth as Isabel watched with barely concealed intensity. Then I dropped the fork, clutching my stomach. I'm sorry. I can't. I think I'm going to be sick. I rushed to the bathroom and stayed there for 20 minutes, listening to Isabel moving around the house. When I emerged, the food was cleared away. I'm worried about you, she said. Really worried. Maybe you should go to the hospital. After this project is done. Just a few more days. I touched her face, letting her see the love I used to feel. I promise, Belle. Just a few more days. She kissed me softly. Okay, a few more days. I went to bed that night, knowing that everything was about to come to a head. The trap was set. The players were in position. Now we just had to wait for them to spring it. Chapter 5. The Revelation. The Singhs left for San Francisco early Thursday morning. I watched from my car as they loaded their luggage, making sure the neighbors saw them leaving. Rogelio waved to me conspicuously. Remember, check on the house every day, he called out loudly enough for anyone listening to hear. Will do, I called back. Della hugged me before getting in the car. Be safe, she whispered, and make them pay. They drove off, but they weren't going to San Francisco. They were checking into a hotel 30 miles away under false names, waiting for my call. I went to work in my office, making sure to be visible, keeping to my normal routine. Hassan and I had a legitimate meeting with clients about the Caldwell renovation. Everything had to appear normal, but my phone was connected to the security cameras at the Ashford mansion. Every angle of the study was covered. The moment someone triggered the motion sensors, I know. At 2:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. Movement detected in the study. It's happening, I told Hassan. We were in Hassan's car within minutes, driving toward the mansion. Jared Howard was already monitoring the feed remotely, recording everything for evidence. Dr. Gibson was on standby with the police, waiting for my signal. On my phone screen, I watched Brennan Garrett and my wife breaking into the study. They'd come in through a window. Amateur hour. The security system was designed to alert the police, but I disabled that feature. I wanted them inside. I wanted them to commit to the crime. Brennan went straight to the safe. He'd clearly done his research. He had professional safe-cracking equipment. "This is going to take a few minutes," he muttered. Isabel was pacing, nervous. "Are you sure Sly won't come by? You said he's barely functional. Probably sleeping off whatever you gave him." Brenton didn't look up from his work. "Relax. We'll be in and out in 20 minutes. What if the Hawthorne Foundation finds out the collection was stolen?" "They won't. We're going to stage it as a professional burglary. The Singh's insurance will pay out. The foundation will think the collection was destroyed or lost." Brenton smiled. "And we'll be selling the real pieces to my buyer in Dubai for $10 million. $5 million each," Isabel said. "After expenses, it's more like 4.5. But yes." The safe clicked. "Got it." He pulled open the door, and they both stared at the contents. The Hawthorne documents were there, carefully preserved in archival folders. The jewelry box sat beside them, glinting in the afternoon light streaming through the bay window. "My God," Isabel breathed. "It's really here." "Help me pack it up," Brenton ordered. They worked quickly, transferring everything into a protective case Brenton had brought. They were professionals at this, moving with practiced efficiency. What they didn't know was that every item they touched had been marked with UV powder. Every document photographed and authenticated by the Hawthorne Foundation weeks ago. The real collection was already safely stored in a museum vault. What they were stealing was a perfect replica I'd had made. It had cost me $40,000, most of my savings, but it would be worth every penny. Hassan and I pulled up to the mansion just as they were finishing. "Wait," I told Hassan. "Let them get to their car." We watched Brennan and Isabel exit through the window, hurrying to a black SUV parked down the street. They loaded the case into the trunk, both of them laughing, drunk on their success. Then Brenton grabbed Isabel and kissed her hard. She melted into him, and I felt a strange detachment. I'd loved this woman once. Now she was just another problem to solve. "They're leaving," Hassan said. "Good. Let them think they got away with it." I pulled out my phone. Now we moved to phase 2. I called Isabel. She answered on the third ring, slightly breathless. "Sly? What's up?" "Belle, I'm at the office, but I'm feeling really bad. Worse than before. Can you come get me?" "I don't think I should drive." A pause. I could almost hear her thinking, calculating. "Of course, baby. I'll be there in 20 minutes. "Thanks. I'm sorry. I think I might need to go to the hospital this time." "Okay. Don't worry. I'll take care of you." She hung up. I imagined her and Brenton having a quick conversation, deciding how to play this. They'd hidden the stolen collection somewhere, probably Brenton's warehouse. Now Isabel had to come play the concerned wife. While I waited, I made another call. "Dr. Gibson? It's time. I'm bringing her in." Isabel arrived at my office, looking perfectly composed. Concerned wife, worried about her ailing husband. "You look terrible," she said, helping me to her car. "Let's get you to the hospital." "County General," I mumbled. "Dr. Gibson said she'd see me if I came in." "You've been seeing Dr. Gibson?" Isabel's voice sharpened slightly. "Hassan recommended her. She's a specialist." I slumped in the passenger seat. "Belle, I'm scared. What if something's really wrong?" She squeezed my hand. "I'm sure it's nothing serious. Probably just stress." We drove to County General, and Isabel helped me inside. Dr. Gibson was waiting with a wheelchair and 2 nurses. "Mr. Kennedy, let's get you examined immediately." Dr. Gibson looked at Isabel. "Mrs. Kennedy, you can wait in the consultation room. I'll update you shortly." But instead of going to an exam room, Dr. Gibson wheeled me directly to a conference room where Hassan, Jared Howard, and 2 police detectives were waiting. "What's happening?" Isabel's voice rose as she realized something was wrong. "Mrs. Kennedy," Detective Brandon Kruger said, standing. He was a broad-shouldered man in his 40s with the weary eyes of someone who'd seen too much. "We need to ask you some questions." "Questions?" "My husband is sick." "Your husband is fine," Dr. Gibson interrupted. "He's been under my care for 3 weeks. I've been treating him for amatoxin poisoning." Isabel's face went white. "What? That's impossible. Blood tests don't lie." Dr. Gibson pulled up lab results on a monitor. "Mr. Kennedy has been systematically poisoned with destroying angel mushrooms over a period of approximately 8 weeks. The poisoning was deliberate and would have been fatal if left untreated." "This is insane." "Sly, tell them." "I know everything, Belle." I stood up from the wheelchair, steady on my feet. I know about Brennan. I know about the plan to steal the Hawthorne collection. I know you've been trying to kill me. You're clearly delusional. The stress has gotten to you. Show her, I told Jared Howard. He played the security footage on a large screen. Isabel watched herself and Brenton breaking into the Ashford mansion, stealing the collection, laughing about their plan. That's not. I can explain. We also have text messages from your burner phone, Detective Kruger said. Messages discussing the poisoning, the theft, your affair, and your plan to split $10 million from the sale of stolen property. Isabel's face crumpled. Then surprisingly, she laughed. It was a harsh, bitter sound. You think you've won? You don't know anything. She looked at me with pure hatred. Brenton has the collection. Even if you arrest me, he'll sell it and disappear. You'll never see those documents again. Actually, I said calmly, what Brenton has are replicas. The real Hawthorne collection has been in the Hawthorne Foundation's secure vault for 3 weeks. The color drained from her face. No, that's not possible. Your burner phone had spyware on it, Hassan said. We've known every move you were planning. And right now, Detective Kruger added, my partner is arresting Mr. Garrett at his warehouse. The items he stole will tie him to the burglary. Combined with the text messages and security footage, you're both looking at multiple felonies. Attempted murder, Dr. Gibson listed. Grand theft, conspiracy, breaking and entering. But you're forgetting something, Isabel said desperately. I'm your wife. You can't testify against me. Spousal privilege only applies to communications made during the marriage, Jared Howard interrupted. Not to crimes. And even spousal privilege doesn't protect you from physical evidence like blood tests, text messages, and video footage. He smiled without warmth. You should have hired a better lawyer before trying to commit murder. Isabel lunged at me then, all pretense of civility gone. You bastard. That collection was supposed to be ours. You found it. We deserved that money. Security guards caught her before she reached me. She screamed and fought as they restrained her. Mrs. Kennedy, Detective Kruger said formally, you're under arrest for attempted murder, grand theft, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent. I watched as they took her away, still screaming threats and accusations. 8 years of marriage, ending in handcuffs and hate. Hassan put his hand on my shoulder. You okay? Yeah. I surprised myself by meaning it. Yeah, I think I am. What you did took courage, Dr. Gibson said quietly. Most people wouldn't have been able to keep up the act for so long. I wanted them to destroy themselves, I explained. If I'd just gone to the police when I found out, they might have gotten lighter sentences. Claimed it was a misunderstanding. But now, they committed every crime on camera with full premeditation. There's no defense. Remind me never to cross you, Jared Howard said with a slight smile. That was some masterful manipulation. They manipulated themselves. I just gave them the opportunity. I looked at the security footage, frozen on Isabel's face as she realized they'd been caught. Is it strange that I don't feel angry anymore? Just tired. That's normal, Dr. Gibson assured me. You've been living with this stress for weeks. Now that it's over, the adrenaline is wearing off. My phone rang. The Sings. Sylvester? We saw the news. Are you all right? I'm fine. It's done. They're both in custody. Thank God. Della's voice was shaky with relief. When can we come home? Now, if you want. The police will need statements from you both, but the house is secure. We're heading back now. Sylvester, what you did for us for the collection, you would have done the same. I looked at Hassan, at the team that had helped me survive this. And I didn't do it alone. After the call, Detective Kruger returned with an update. We got him. Brennan Garrett. He was at his warehouse with the stolen items, trying to arrange transport. He actually thought he'd gotten away with it. What happens now? I asked. Arraignment tomorrow. Based on the evidence, I'd say they'll both be denied bail. The DA is pushing for maximum sentences. Attempted murder alone carries 15 to life. Add in the other charges, and they're looking at decades. Good. You should know, Garrett's already trying to make a deal. Wants to testify against your wife in exchange for a reduced sentence. Will it work? Kruger shrugged. That's up to the DA. But honestly, we have so much evidence against both of them, we don't need his testimony. My guess is the DA will refuse the deal just to make sure they both go down hard. Over the next few hours, I gave my formal statement. Hassan gave his. The Singhs arrived and gave theirs. By the time we finished, it was nearly midnight. I stepped outside the police station, breathing in the cool night air. My phone had been buzzing with messages, friends, colleagues, even my estranged mother calling after seeing the news. But I didn't feel like talking to anyone except the people who'd actually been there. Hassan, I said, finding him by his car. Thank you. For everything. For saving my life that night. For helping me through this. I owe you everything. You don't owe me anything. He clasped my shoulder firmly. You're my friend. My boss. And you're a good man who deserved better than what she did to you. Still, when this is all over, you're getting a raise. And partnership in the firm if you want it. His eyes widened. Sylvester, you've earned it. Hell, you've earned it twice over. I managed to smile. Besides, I'm going to need someone to help me run things while I take a very long vacation. Where will you go? I don't know yet. Somewhere far away from here. Somewhere I can think. I looked up at the sky, stars barely visible through the city lights. Maybe Italy. I've always wanted to study the Renaissance architecture in person. That sounds perfect. We stood there for a moment, both of us processing everything that had happened. Do you think she ever loved me? I asked quietly. Hassan considered the question seriously. I think she loved who she wanted you to be. The man who would give her the life she thought she deserved. But real love doesn't involve poison and murder plots. No, I agreed. I suppose it doesn't. I went back to my house, the house I'd share with Isabel, just long enough to pack a bag. Tomorrow I'd find a hotel. Next week, I'd start divorce proceedings. Eventually, I'd sell this place and all its poisoned memories. But tonight, for the first time in months, I slept soundly, because the nightmare was finally over. Or so I thought. Chapter 6, The Conspiracy. The next morning, I woke up to my phone ringing. Jared Howard. We have a problem, he said without preamble. Brenton Garrett posted bail. I sat up, instantly alert. What? How? Someone posted $2 million cash. An anonymous benefactor through a bail bondsman. Jared's voice was tense. Sylvester, someone with serious money, doesn't want him in jail. The buyer. The one in Dubai. That's my guess. If Garrett knows where the real collection is. But he doesn't. He stole replicas. Does he know that? Or does he think you were bluffing? Jared paused. There's something else. Garrett's lawyer is Alfred Harper. You've heard of him. I had. Harper was a legendary defense attorney known for getting wealthy criminals off on technicalities. He cost $500,000 just to retain. Someone's backing him financially, I said, thinking it through. Someone who believes he can deliver the Hawthorne collection. Exactly. And if they find out he can't. Jared left the threat unspoken. I called Hassan immediately. We need to go to the Ashford mansion. Now, the study looked untouched, exactly as we'd left it after the staged burglary. But when Hassan ran a full security check, we found something disturbing. Someone tried to hack the system last night, he said, pulling up logs. Around 2 a.m., they attempted to access the camera footage, trying to figure out if we'd switched the real collection for fakes. Did they succeed? No, but they'll try again. Hassan looked worried. Sylvester, whoever posted Garrett's bail, has resources. Real resources. They might come after you directly. Let them try. But Hassan wasn't finished. I did more digging on Garrett's known associates. One name keeps coming up, Andrea Kane. She's a broker for high-end illegal antiquities. Works exclusively with billionaires and collectors who don't ask questions about provenance. He showed me a photo. Andrea Kane was a severe-looking woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and the kind of face that suggested she'd seen everything and been impressed by none of it. She's based in Geneva, but travels constantly. Word is, she's been in Los Angeles for the past month. And get this, she was seen having dinner with Garrett 2 weeks ago. Before the heist. Before you even discovered the poisoning. This has been planned for a while. Hassan pulled up more information. Kane has connections to organized crime, international smuggling rings, and at least 3 unsolved murders. People who got in the way of her deals. So Garrett wasn't just working with Isabel. He had a whole network lined up. And now that network thinks you have something they've already paid for. Hassan met my eyes. You're in danger. Real danger. I should have been afraid. Instead, I felt that familiar cold clarity settling over me. The same feeling I got when looking at a structural problem that seemed impossible to solve until you found the right angle. Good, I said, because I have a plan, but it's going to require some acting on your part. What kind of plan? The kind where we make them think they've won, and then we take them all down. Over the next 48 hours, I put my plan into motion. First, I leaked information through carefully chosen channels. I let it slip to a colleague, one I knew had loose lips, that I was having financial troubles, that the lawyers and hospital bills from Isabel's arrest were bankrupting me, that I might need to sell something valuable to stay afloat. The word would reach Garrett and Kane eventually. It always did. Second, I contacted a former client named Bradley Jacobs who owned a high-end auction house. I'd restored his historic office building 3 years ago, and we'd stayed in touch. Bradley, I need a favor, and it might be dangerous. I love dangerous, he said with the enthusiasm of someone who'd never actually faced real danger. What do you need? I need you to host a private auction. Exclusive, invitation only. And I need you to let very specific people know about it. I explained the plan. Bradley's eyes lit up. This is the most exciting thing to happen since I sold that Rembrandt, he breathed. Count me in. Third, I had Hassan spread rumors through his contacts in the architectural world. The Hawthorne collection hadn't actually been donated to the foundation yet. There'd been delays, paperwork issues. The Singhs were having second thoughts. All of it false, but believable enough to make Garrett and his associates think there was still a chance. Finally, I called Rogelio Singh. I need you to play along with something, I said. It's risky, but if it works, we'll catch everyone involved in the scheme. Tell me what you need. For days after Garrett posted bail, I received a phone call from a blocked number. Mr. Kennedy. The voice was female, cultured, with a faint European accent. My name is Andrea Kane. I believe we have mutual interests. I don't know who you are. Don't insult my intelligence. You know exactly who I am. A pause. I understand you're having financial difficulties. Legal fees, medical expenses. These things add up. I'm managing. Are you? I'm willing to offer you a very simple solution. $5 million cash, untraceable. In exchange for the Hawthorne collection. That collection doesn't belong to me. Then convince the people who own it. I'm sure a restoration architect of your caliber has influence. Her voice hardened slightly. Mr. Kennedy, I'm making you this offer once. Take it and walk away wealthy. Refuse, and things become considerably more complicated for you. Is that a threat? It's a reality. I have clients who've already invested significantly in acquiring this collection. They're not the type to accept disappointment gracefully. I let the silence stretch, as if considering. I'll need time, I said finally. The Singhs are difficult people. I can't just walk up to them and ask for millions of dollars in stolen art. You have 1 week. I'll contact you with details. She hung up. I immediately called Detective Kruger. I just got a call from Andrea Kane. We got it. The line was tapped. He sounded excited. Extortion, conspiracy to commit theft, threatening a witness. We're building one hell of case. Good, because here's what I want to do next. The private auction was set for the following Friday at Bradley Jacobs Gallery. Invitation only, with exactly 12 guests, all carefully selected by me and the police. 6 were undercover officers. 3 were legitimate collectors who'd been briefed by the DA. 2 were Hassan and Jared Howard. And the last was Andrea Kane, who'd received an anonymous tip that the Hawthorne collection was being quietly sold. Garrett wasn't invited. He'd been picked up on a parole violation 2 days earlier, convenient timing, and completely legal. We wanted Kane to come alone, desperate to salvage her deal. The night of the auction, the gallery was lit dramatically, displaying various architectural salvage pieces and historical documents. In the center, under spotlights, was a locked display case. Inside was what appeared to be one of Hawthorne's original drawings. Actually, it was another replica, the third one I'd commissioned. But it was perfect, aged paper, correct ink, Hawthorne's signature exactly replicated. I stood near the back of the gallery, wearing a wire, my heart pounding. Andrea Kane entered at exactly 8 p.m. She was taller than I expected, moving with predatory grace, her eyes scanning the room and cataloging every face, every exit. She zeroed in on me immediately. "Mr. Kennedy," she approached with a cool smile. "I'm surprised to see you here. I've reconsidered your offer." "Have you?" She glanced at the display case. "Is that what I think it is? A sample, to prove authenticity." I kept my voice low. "The rest is in a secure location. But first, we need to discuss terms." We moved to a private viewing room, trailed by two people I recognized as undercover officers posing as security. "$5 million, Kane said flatly. "That was my offer. The collection is worth $10 million. Minimum, to legitimate buyers. I'm offering you cash, no questions asked, no paper trail." She leaned forward. "And I'm offering you safety. Take my deal, and you never hear from us again. Refuse, and my clients will take what they want anyway." "Your clients being who exactly?" She smiled. "People you don't want to meet. People who make problems disappear." "That sounds like another threat." "It's a promise." Her eyes were cold. "I've done this for 30 years, Mr. Kennedy. I know how these situations end. The smart people take the money. The stubborn people end up in unmarked graves." "And Garrett? Where does he fit into this?" "Mr. Garrett made promises he couldn't keep. He'll be dealt with accordingly." She waved dismissively. "You, however, still have a chance to do this intelligently. I want $7 million. Half up front, half on delivery." She considered. $3.5 million now. 3.5 on delivery. "Deal." I pretended to think about it, then nodded. "Deal." We shook hands. The moment our palms touched, the door burst open. "FBI." Nobody move. The room flooded with agents. Andrea Kane's expression didn't change. She simply raised her hands calmly, as if this happened every day. "Andrea Kane," Detective Kruger announced, "you're under arrest for extortion, conspiracy to commit theft, threatening a witness, and interstate trafficking of stolen goods." "I want my lawyer," she said calmly. "You're going to need one." Kruger smiled grimly. "Your phone calls have been monitored for the past week. We have you on tape arranging the theft, threatening Mr. Kennedy, and discussing the murder of Brennan Garrett." For the first time, Kane's composure cracked. "What? 2 days ago, you told an associate that Garrett had outlived his usefulness and needed to be handled permanently." "We have the recording." Kane's face went white. She just realized she'd been completely set up. "The Hawthorne collection was never at risk," I told her. "It's been safely stored in a museum vault for weeks. Everything you tried to steal was a fake. Everyone you threatened is protected, and every crime you committed was recorded." She looked at me with pure hatred. "You clever son of a bitch. Takes one to know one," I replied. As I led her away, Jared Howard appeared at my side. That was incredibly dangerous. If she'd brought backup, if she'd suspected the setup. But she didn't. I watched Kane being loaded into a police car. She was so sure of her power, her connections. She thought she could threaten me into submission. She wasn't wrong about having powerful connections, Hassan said, joining us. The FBI found evidence linking her to several crime families. This arrest is going to have ripple effects. Good. Let them all fall. Over the next week, the dominoes continued to topple. Andrea Kane's arrest led to 7 more arrests across 3 countries. Her client list was a who's who of international criminals and corrupt collectors. Brennan Garrett, realizing he'd lost his powerful backer, tried to make a deal with prosecutors. But there was nothing left to bargain with. He'd committed multiple felonies on camera, tried to steal millions in historical artifacts, and threatened witnesses. He was sentenced to 18 years in federal prison. Isabel's trial was faster. With no resources for a decent defense and overwhelming evidence against her, she took a plea deal. 15 years for attempted murder with no parole. I attended both sentencings. I wanted to see their faces when they realized the full scope of what they'd lost. Garrett looked broken, years older than his age. Isabel wouldn't look at me at all. When her sentencing was read, she finally turned. "I hope you're happy," she hissed. "I'm not happy," I replied honestly, "but I'm alive, which is more than I'd be if you'd succeeded." That was the last time I ever spoke to my wife. Chapter 7. The Final Pieces. 2 months after the trials, I sat in Rogelio Singh's study, the same room where this had all begun, signing the final paperwork for the Ashford restoration. It's your finest work, Rogelio said, looking around the completed space. Every detail was perfect, every historical element preserved and restored. The hidden compartments Hassan and I had built remained, known only to us and the Singhs. Julian Hawthorne himself will be proud. I hope so. I closed the leather folder. The house is beautiful. You and Della should enjoy it for many years. Actually, we've been thinking. Rogelio exchanged a glance with his wife. We're getting older. This house is too big for just the two of us. We've decided to donate it. Donate it to the Hawthorne Foundation, Della explained, as a museum and research center. It's what the house deserves, to be appreciated by people who love history and architecture. She smiled, and we were hoping you'd be willing to serve as the lead consultant for the conversion. I was stunned. Yes. Absolutely yes. There's more, Rogelio added. The foundation is establishing a new position, Director of Historical Preservation. They want someone who understands both the architectural and personal significance of protecting these buildings. Someone who's proven they'll fight for what's right. They're offering you the job, Della said gently. I looked around the study, at the walls that had hidden Julian Hawthorne's secrets for nearly a century, at the space where I nearly died and then found the strength to fight back. I'll think about it, I said. That night, I had dinner with Hassan at a small Italian restaurant in Little Italy. He'd become more than my colleague over the past months. He'd become my closest friend. You should take the foundation job, he said, twirling pasta on his fork. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. What about the firm? I can't just abandon our projects. You're not abandoning anything. I've been thinking, if you make me partner like you promised, I can handle the day-to-day operations. You can consult on the major projects, but focus on the foundation work. He grinned. Besides, I've already hired 2 new engineers. Business is booming. Because of the publicity from the case. Because people recognize quality work when they see it. Hassan raised his wine glass. To new beginnings. I clinked my glass against his. To new beginnings. My phone buzzed. A number I didn't recognize. Sylvester Kennedy? Yes. This is Jules Wallace from the Los Angeles Times. I'm writing a feature story about the Hawthorne collection case and your role in bringing down an international smuggling ring. I was hoping I could interview you. I almost declined. But then I thought about Garrett and Isabel, about Andrea Kane, and all the others who'd thought they could profit from destroying history and hurting people. Sure, I said. I'll talk to you. The article ran the following Sunday, front page of the art section. Wallace was a thorough journalist. She'd interviewed the Singhs, the Hawthorne Foundation, even Dr. Megan Gibson and Detective Kruger. The piece painted me as something between a hero and a vigilante, a man who'd methodically taken down his would-be killers using intelligence and careful planning. The online comments were split between people who thought I was brilliant and people who thought I'd taken too many risks. I didn't care about either opinion. I knew the truth. I'd simply refused to be a victim. 3 weeks later, I accepted the foundation's offer. Hassan officially became partner in Kennedy and Whitehead Restoration Architecture, and I moved out of the house in Mission Hills, selling it to a young couple with 2 kids who promised to fill it with happier memories. I bought a loft downtown in an old converted warehouse with exposed brick and steel beams. It needed work, but that was fine. I liked working with my hands, liked the meditation of restoration. One Saturday afternoon, I was sanding floorboards when someone knocked. It's open. A woman I didn't recognize stepped inside. She was about my age, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and paint-stained jeans. Sylvester Kennedy? I'm Lindsay Patel. I'm a documentary filmmaker. I've been following your story. I'm not interested in being filmed, I said automatically. Not you. The Hawthorne collection, the history behind it, Julian Hawthorne's life and work, how close we came to losing these irreplaceable pieces. She looked around my loft with an appraising eye. I want to tell the story of why historical preservation matters. And I think you're the perfect person to help me do it. I should have said no. Should have told her I wanted to move on, leave the drama behind. Instead, I found myself saying, tell me more about your vision. We talked for 3 hours. Lindsay was passionate about history, about the stories buildings could tell. She understood that the Hawthorne case wasn't really about theft or murder. It was about the eternal conflict between profit and preservation, between people who saw history as something to exploit and people who saw it as something to protect. "I'll think about it," I told her finally. She left her card. "I hope you say yes. This story deserves to be told right." After she left, I stood at my window, looking out over downtown Los Angeles. Somewhere out there, Isabel sat in a prison cell, paying for her crimes. Garrett was in another facility, probably making new criminal connections. Andrea Kane was fighting extradition charges in 3 countries. And I was here, alive, free, with a career I loved and friends I trusted. The revenge I'd taken wasn't about destroying them. It was about refusing to let them destroy me, about taking their plot and turning it back on them with precise, calculated moves. Some people might call that cold. I called it justice. I picked up my phone and texted Hassan, "I think I'm going to help make a documentary." His response came immediately. "Of course you are. You never do anything halfway." That night, I had dinner with the Singhs, now a weekly tradition. Della had made her famous lamb curry, and Rogelio was sharing stories about Julian Hawthorne's correspondence with other architects of his era. Did you know Hawthorne once designed a building specifically to trap a corrupt business partner? Rogelio asked, his eyes twinkling. The partner was stealing from him, so Hawthorne created plans with intentional flaws. When the partner tried to build the design without Hawthorne, the whole structure collapsed during construction, but not until all the workers had left for the day. No one was hurt, but the partner lost everything. Really? I leaned forward, fascinated. The story is probably apocryphal, Della admitted, but it sounds like something Hawthorne would have done. He was known for being brilliant and ruthless in equal measure. I thought about my own trap, my own carefully constructed plan. Maybe I had more in common with Julian Hawthorne than I'd realized. To brilliant and ruthless architects, I said, raising my glass. "Here, here," Rogelio agreed. As the evening wound down, I helped Della clear the table while Rogelio pulled out a portfolio. "I wanted to show you something," he said. "We found more papers hidden in the library. Not part of the original collection, but remarkable nonetheless." He spread out several documents. They were letters between Hawthorne and his wife, discussing his work and philosophy. One passage stood out to me. "My darling, people often ask why I include such elaborate hidden features in my buildings. They think it's merely showmanship or paranoia. But the truth is simpler. I believe that every structure should have secrets, layers that reward the careful observer. Because life is not simple or straightforward. It's complex with hidden depths. And the buildings we live in should reflect that complexity." I read the passage again, feeling a strange connection across time. "Can I get a copy of this?" I asked. Of course. I had it framed and hung in my loft, where I could see it every morning. A reminder that complexity wasn't weakness, it was strength. That having hidden depths, secret plans, wasn't dishonest, it was human. Isabel had tried to use my trust against me. Brennan had tried to exploit my discovery. Andrea Kane had tried to threaten me into submission. But they'd all forgotten that the most dangerous opponent isn't the one who fights openly. It's the one who watches, plans, and strikes with precision when the moment is right. I'd learned that lesson the hard way, but I'd learned it well. Chapter 8, Closure. 6 months after the trials, I received an unexpected visitor at the Foundation offices. "Mr. Kennedy, there's someone here to see you. She says it's important." I looked up from the Hawthorne cataloging project I was working on. "Who is it?" She says her name is Rosalie Luna. She's Brenton Garrett's ex-wife. I hadn't known Garrett was married, let alone divorced. "Send her in." Rosalie Luna was a petite woman in her 50s with silver-streaked black hair and intelligent eyes that had seen too much. She carried herself with the wounded dignity of someone who'd survived something terrible. "Mr. Kennedy, thank you for seeing me." She sat across from my desk, clutching a manila envelope. "I know this is strange, but I needed to talk to you. What can I do for you?" I wanted to thank you. Her voice was quiet but firm. For stopping him. For making sure he couldn't hurt anyone else. "I didn't do it for..." "I know. You did it for yourself, for the Singhs, for the collection. But in doing that, you also saved other people. People like me." She opened the envelope and pulled out a photograph. This is my daughter, Amelia. She died 3 years ago. Suicide, the coroner said. The girl in the photo was young, maybe 25, with her mother's dark hair and a bright smile. I'm so sorry for your loss. Brenton killed her. Rosalie's voice was steady, but her hands shook. Not directly, but he destroyed her spirit, manipulated her, used her connections to steal from her grandfather's estate. When she finally understood what he'd done, she couldn't live with the shame. She looked at me directly. The police said there wasn't enough evidence to charge him. He walked away, and my daughter was gone. I felt a chill run down my spine. Ms. Luna, I tried to warn your wife. When I found out Brennan was seeing someone new, I tracked her down. I told her what he was, what he'd done. She told me I was a bitter ex-wife making up lies. Rosalie laughed bitterly. Maybe if she'd listened, she wouldn't be in prison right now. You're not responsible for her choices. I know, but I wanted you to understand what you did mattered. You exposed him for what he really was. You made sure he'll never manipulate anyone again. She put the photo back in the envelope carefully. My daughter can't rest easier because she's dead, but I can, and I wanted to thank you for that. We talked for another hour. Rosalie told me about Amelia, about her art and her dreams, about how Brenton had isolated her from her family, convinced her that stealing from her grandfather was justified, that the old man wouldn't miss the money. He has a pattern, she explained. He finds vulnerable people, usually women, but not always. People with access to valuable things. He charms them, seduces them, makes them believe they're partners. Then he manipulates them into committing crimes. When things go wrong, they take the fall and he walks away clean. Until now. Until now. She smiled sadly. Your wife was his biggest score, wasn't she? A connection to the Hawthorne collection. He must have thought he'd hit the jackpot. She was complicit, I said firmly. She made her own choices. She tried to kill me. I'm not excusing her. But I guarantee you, Brennan pushed her toward it. He has a way of making the unthinkable seem reasonable, even necessary. Rosalie stood to leave. Thank you again, Mr. Kennedy, for stopping him, for making sure Amelia's death wasn't completely meaningless. After she left, I sat at my desk for a long time, thinking about patterns and victims and the complex web of choices that had led to everything that happened. Isabel had tried to kill me. That was unforgivable. But she'd also been manipulated by a master manipulator, someone who'd been perfecting his technique for decades. It didn't excuse her actions, but it made me understand them better. That night, I did something I've been avoiding for 6 months. I wrote Isabel a letter. Belle, I'm not writing to forgive you. What you did was unforgivable. You tried to murder me, slowly, painfully, while pretending to love me. That's not something I can ever forget or excuse. But I want you to know that I understand how it happened. I met Rosalie Luna today. She told me about her daughter, about Brenton's patterns. I understand now that he targeted you specifically, manipulated you, pushed you toward increasingly darker actions. That doesn't make you less guilty. You still made every choice along the way. You could have stopped at any point. You could have told me the truth, walked away, gotten help. You didn't. But I want you to understand something too. The man you betrayed, the man you tried to kill wasn't weak, wasn't stupid, wasn't the obstacle you and Brennan thought I was. I was strong enough to survive your poisoning, smart enough to figure out your plan, patient enough to wait for the perfect moment to spring my trap, and ruthless enough to take you both down without hesitation. You wanted the money from the Hawthorne collection. Instead, you got 15 years in prison. Brennan got 18, and I got justice, a thriving career, and the satisfaction of knowing I beat you at your own game. I hope you spend those 15 years thinking about that. I hope you realize that the man you underestimated was always smarter, stronger, and better than you gave him credit for. And I hope you understand that I didn't just beat you. I destroyed everything you and Brennan tried to build. Goodbye, Belle. I'd say I wish you well, but we both know that would be a lie. Sylvester, I never sent the letter. Just writing it was enough. I burned it in my fireplace and watched the words turn to ash. Closure didn't come from confronting her. It came from moving forward. The documentary with Lindsay Patel began filming that spring. We traveled to 5 cities, interviewing historians, architects, and preservationists. We visited buildings Hawthorne had designed, explored his influence on modern architecture, and we told the story of the collection, how it was found, how it was nearly lost, and how it was saved. Lindsay insisted on including the full story of the theft attempt, the poisoning, the investigation. This isn't just about buildings, she explained. It's about why these things matter enough to kill for. That's the real story. The documentary premiered at a film festival in New York. I sat in the theater, watching my own story unfold on screen, and felt a strange disconnect. That man on screen, calmly describing how he'd discovered his wife was poisoning him. That was me, but also wasn't. That version of Sylvester Kennedy was frozen in time, forever playing a role in a story that had already ended. The real me had moved on. After the premiere, at the reception, a young woman approached me. She was in her early 20s, student ID badge visible on her lanyard. Mr. Kennedy? I'm studying architecture at Columbia. I just wanted to say, your story inspired me. Not the dramatic parts, but the way you talked about preservation. About protecting history, even when it's not profitable. Her eyes were bright with enthusiasm. I want to do what you do. I want to save buildings. I looked at her young, hopeful face and saw echoes of myself at that age. Before the betrayal, before the darkness, when I believed that passion and dedication were enough. Then do it, I told her, but learn from my mistakes. Don't trust blindly. Protect yourself while you're protecting history. And remember, the buildings will outlast all of us. Make sure they outlast the people who would destroy them. She thanked me and hurried off to join her friends. Hassan appeared at my elbow, handing me a drink. Giving advice to the next generation? Someone has to. I sipped the champagne. Did you see the review in the Times? A gripping, true story of art, architecture, and attempted murder, told with intelligence and respect for both the history and the people involved. Pretty good. Lindsay did an excellent job. So did you. Hassan clinked his glass against mine. You told your story on your terms. That takes courage. Later that night, alone in my hotel room, I stood at the window looking out over Manhattan. Thousands of buildings, each with its own story. How many held secrets? How many had witnessed betrayals, crimes, love stories, tragedies? Every structure was a testament to human ambition and human frailty. Julian Hawthorne had understood that. He'd built secrets into his buildings because he understood that complexity was the essence of life. I'd learned the same lesson the hard way. My phone rang. Rogelio. Sylvester, are you watching the news? No, what? Turn on CNN. Now, I found the channel. A breaking news banner scrolled across the bottom. International art smuggling ring dismantled. Arrests in 7 countries. The reporter was explaining how Andrea Kane's arrest had led to a massive investigation, uncovering a network that had been operating for over 20 years. Dozens of stolen historical artifacts had been recovered. Millions of dollars seized. This all started with the Hawthorne collection case, the reporter said. One man's refusal to be a victim sparked an investigation that brought down one of the most sophisticated smuggling operations in the world. I watched, stunned, as they showed photos of recovered artifacts. Paintings, sculptures, historical documents, priceless pieces that had been stolen and sold to private collectors. You did that, Rogelio said on the phone. Your investigation, your testimony, it gave the authorities everything they needed. I was just trying to save myself. And in doing so, you saved countless pieces of history. His voice was warm. Julian Hawthorne would be very proud of you. After we hung up, I sat in the dark hotel room, processing the news. I'd wanted justice for myself. I'd wanted Isabel and Brenton to pay for what they'd tried to do to me. But the ripples had spread far beyond my personal revenge. Real good had come from it. Real preservation of history. Maybe that was the real victory. Not just that I'd survived and they'd been punished, but that something meaningful had resulted from all the pain and betrayal. I thought about Amelia Luna, dead because of Brenton's manipulations. About all the other victims of Andrea Kane's network. About the historical artifacts that had been stolen, sold, hidden away in private collections where no one could study or appreciate them. My story had been about more than just me, and that finally felt like closure. Chapter 9, New Foundations. 1 year after the documentary premiered, I stood in the restored Ashford Mansion, now the Hawthorne Center for Architectural Preservation. The opening gala was in full swing. Historians, preservationists, architects, and donors milling through the rooms, admiring the restored glory of Julia Hawthorne's vision. The Hawthorne collection was displayed in the study, the same room where it had been discovered. But now it was behind museum-quality glass, properly cataloged and conserved, available for scholars and the public to study. I'd fought for that. The foundation had wanted to keep the collection in their main archive in New York. But I'd argued that it belonged here, in the building where it had been hidden for nearly a century. In the end, they'd agreed. Quite a crowd, Hassan said, appearing with 2 glasses of wine. The Singhs must be thrilled. They are. Della told me she cried when she saw the exhibit. I accepted the wine. How's the firm? Booming. We got more projects than we can handle. I'm thinking of hiring 2 more engineers. He grinned. Turns out being connected to an international art smuggling case is great for business. That's not why we do this work. No, but it doesn't hurt. Hassan's expression turned serious. How are you, really? It's been a year. Has it gotten easier? I consider the question honestly. Yes and no. I don't think about it every day anymore. I don't check the locks on my doors 3 times before bed. I can eat without wondering if it's poisoned. I paused, but I don't trust as easily as I used to. Maybe I never will again. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Trust should be earned. I know, but sometimes I miss who I was before all this. The guy who believed in happy endings and saw the best in people. That guy was naive, Hassan said bluntly. This guy, the one standing here having survived murder attempts and brought down an international smuggling ring. He's better, stronger, wiser. Maybe. Or maybe I'm just more damaged. You're not damaged. You're experienced. There's a difference. Hassan raised his glass. To experience, hard-won and well-earned. We drank to that. The evening continued. I gave a speech about Julian Hawthorne's legacy, about the importance of historical preservation, about how buildings connect us to our past and shape our future. The audience applauded warmly. Lindsay Patel was there, filming for a follow-up documentary about the center's opening. She cornered me afterward. I need you to do an interview. Final thoughts, 1 year later. How has this experience changed you? Do I have to? Yes. Come on, you owe me. The first documentary launched both our careers. She wasn't wrong. Her film had won awards and gotten picked up by a major streaming service. My role as foundation director had expanded to include consulting on preservation projects nationwide. Fine. 1 interview. We found a quiet corner. Lindsay set up her camera and began with the softball questions. How did I feel about the center opening? What were my hopes for its future? What did preservation mean to me? Then she asked the question I'd been avoiding. Do you have any regrets about how you handled the situation with your wife and Brennan Garrett? I thought about it carefully. No, I did what I needed to do to survive and to protect something valuable. Could I have handled it differently? Sure. I could have gone to the police immediately. Let them handle everything. But then Garrett might have gotten away with it. Andrea Kane would still be operating. And I would have spent the rest of my life wondering if I could have done more. Some people have criticized your methods. Said you were too calculating, too cold. Some people have never had someone they loved try to murder them. I met the camera directly. I'm not sorry for being smart enough to outsmart them. I'm not sorry for using every advantage. I had to make sure they paid for what they tried to do. And I'm not sorry that their downfall led to a larger investigation that saved countless historical artifacts and brought down a criminal network. You sound angry. I'm angry. Not at them anymore. They're in prison where they belong. But at the people who think I should have handled it with more compassion, more understanding. They tried to kill me. They tried to steal priceless historical artifacts. They didn't deserve compassion. They deserved justice. And I made sure they got it. Lindsay lowered the camera. That was perfect. Raw, honest, powerful. Was it too much? No, it was exactly right. She packed up her equipment. People need to hear that. They need to understand that sometimes the world isn't fair. And sometimes you have to fight for yourself because no one else will. After she left, I wandered through the center alone. Most of the guests had departed, leaving just the security guards and cleanup crew. I ended up in the study, looking at the Hawthorne collection under its protective glass. The blueprints that had started everything. The jewelry that had been worth a fortune. The journal entries that revealed a brilliant, complex man. My phone rang. An unknown number. Hello. Sylvester Kennedy? The voice was male, young, uncertain. Yes. My name is Harrison Villanueva. I'm Brennan Garrett's son. I nearly hung up, but something in his voice stopped me. What do you want? I wanted to apologize for what my father did to you. I know it doesn't mean anything coming from me, but I needed to say it. He paused. I haven't spoken to him in 5 years. We were estranged before all of this happened. But when I heard the full story, when I understood what he'd tried to do to you and your wife. Ex-wife. Right. Sorry. When I understood the scope of his crimes, I felt like I needed to reach out. To tell you that not everyone in his family is like that. I never thought they were. Some people have treated me differently. Like I'm guilty by association. Like his crimes are somehow my fault. His voice cracked slightly. I just wanted you to know that I think what you did was brave and right. And I'm glad he's in prison where he can't hurt anyone else. We talked for a few more minutes. Harrison was a teacher working with at-risk youth in Phoenix. He'd cut ties with his father after discovering Brenton had been stealing from his grandmother's estate. He was always charming, Harrison explained. Even when I was a kid, I could see how he manipulated people. But I didn't understand the full extent until it was too late. That's not your fault. Maybe not. But I should have done more to stop him. You were his son. He was your father. That's complicated. I thought about my own father, about the years we'd been estranged over my career choice. Family is always complicated. After we hung up, I realized something important. Brennan Garrett wasn't just a villain in my story. He was a real person with a family, with a son who'd been hurt by his actions. Isabel wasn't just a murderer. She was a woman who'd made terrible choices and was now paying for them. That didn't make what they'd done okay, but made them human. And maybe that was the final lesson I needed to learn. That people are complex, that villains have families and heroes have flaws, and that justice doesn't erase the complications. It just addresses the wrongs. I left the center and drove home to my loft. The building was quiet at this hour, just the hum of the city outside my windows. I made coffee and sat at my drafting table, pulling out the blueprints for a new project. A historic church in San Diego needed restoration. The congregation couldn't afford a big firm, but the foundation had agreed to subsidize the work. As I studied the drawings, my phone buzzed with a message from Hassan. Great speech tonight. Proud of you. Then one from Rogelio. The center is going to change lives. You should be very proud. And finally, one from Lindsay. The interview was perfect. You're going to help a lot of people by being so honest. I set down my phone and returned to the blueprints. This was my life now. Preserving buildings, protecting history, helping the next generation of architects and preservationists. Teaching people that the past matters, that what came before us shapes what comes after us. Isabel had tried to kill me for money. Brennan had tried to profit from history. Andrea Kane had tried to treat priceless artifacts as commodities. They'd all failed, and I'd won, not just by surviving, but by thriving, by taking the worst thing that had ever happened to me and turning it into something meaningful, by refusing to be broken, to be defeated, to be anything less than who I was meant to be. Some people might say I was cold, calculating, too ruthless in my revenge. Those people had never been poisoned by someone they loved. Those people had never had to fight for their life while pretending everything was normal. Those people had never had to be smart enough, strong enough, patient enough to beat a killer at their own game. I had, and I'd won. That was enough. I returned to the blueprints, making notes about the church restoration. There was work to do, buildings to save, history to preserve, the past to try to kill me. But I'd survived to shape the future. And that, finally, was my victory. Epilogue. 5 years later, I received a letter from the California Department of Corrections. Isabel had been denied parole. I read the notification without emotion. She'd served 5 years of her 15-year sentence. She'd have to wait another 5 before she could try again. The letter included a note from her parole hearing. She'd claimed to be rehabilitated, to understand the gravity of her crimes, to be sorry for what she'd done. The board hadn't believed her. Neither did I. I filed the letter away and returned to my work. The Hawthorne Center had become one of the premier preservation institutes in the country. We'd saved over 40 historic buildings in 5 years. We'd trained hundreds of students. We'd published papers, hosted conferences, changed the conversation around historical architecture. Hassan's firm, our firm, was thriving. We'd opened a second office in San Francisco. We'd won awards. We'd become the go-to firm for sensitive restoration projects. And me? I found something I thought I'd lost forever. Peace. Not the naive peace of someone who'd never been hurt, but the hard-won peace of someone who'd survived, fought back, and emerged stronger. I still thought about that anniversary dinner sometimes. About the moment Hassan called. About the mushrooms floating in wine-dark sauce. About how close I'd come to eating them. But I didn't dwell on it, because dwelling on what almost happened meant missing what actually did happen. And what happened was that I survived. I fought back. I won. And in winning, I found my true calling. Not just preserving buildings, but preserving the idea that strength comes in many forms. That intelligence is its own kind of power. That patience and planning can defeat even the most cunning enemies. Julian Hawthorne had built secrets into his buildings. I'd built my life on the secrets I'd learned from nearly being destroyed. And both of us, in our own ways, had created something that would outlast us. Something that mattered. Something that endured. That was enough. That was everything.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.